She was wanting to come down.
Well, good.
Joel, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
Doing well. You came back, didn't you?
I did something.
Yes, I know. I get it.
Rex, he's reserving community service. For something.
Right.
It's 6 o'clock, we'll call this meeting in order. Everyone's here tonight, it looks like. We stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hope you all had a chance to review the agenda. Do we have any questions regarding the agenda? Get a motion to accept.
I'll move to accept the agenda.
All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Is anybody here to give public comments on anything not on the agenda? Don is MIA, so nobody's speaking. We'll move on to consent agenda. Any questions regarding the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are ready for the proclamation from CASA. I see you're present. Come on up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having us. My name is Donita Garner, and I am with Hope Unlimited Child Advocacy Center, and I represent the Hope Unlimited Child Visitation Center. And we have Kathy with CASA. Hello. And we also have Tina here with KCSL, Kansas Children's Service League. And so we're here to ask you guys to proclaim April Child Abuse Awareness Month, and we would like to see if you would sign our proclamation. Just a few statistics. In the year of 2021, there was 123 children who were taken out of their homes, and CASAs are typically assigned to those so they can help them through that process. And so we're very proud to partner with CASA in that. In 2021, Hope Unlimited had 85 children that we interviewed who were physically or sexually abused to help investigate, and we are so proud of the Iola Police Department, who does a marvelous job with those cases and partners with us through our multidisciplinary team. And we also are with KCSL, and they do lots of prevention education. So as a group, we would ask that you proclaim April Child Abuse Awareness Month.
Anybody have any questions for them?
Not for them. Matt, do we do anything other than the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month? We participate in we really don't have the land to, but participation in the pinwheels or any other sort of...
I'll think of the pinwheels we do.
We actually have a pinwheel garden we plant at the courthouse, and we do have some pinwheels that we can even plant like in the planters, like around the square. That would be a welcome thing to do. We also have our pinwheel coloring contest that we do in all the schools, kindergarten through 3rd grade, for Allen, Anderson, Neosho, Woodson, Wilson counties. We have over 3,000 kids that participate in that, and we ask our judges from our communities to actually come in and do that. We do a little message of safety for every child. If you're being harmed, please talk to a safe adult, and it's very simple that most kids can understand. So we do have that we do with all the schools, and it's just a wonderful way to help promote safety in every home, in every classroom. So we're honored to be able to do this work, and we just want to make sure everybody's safe.
And the reason I was asking, before moving to Iola, I served on a CASA board in a different jurisdiction. And I just think that there's so much more that government entities could do to support the institutions, but also Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so I was just wondering what we do at the city. But
We welcome everybody to Wear Blue Day, which is April 1st. Wear blue and take a picture and hashtag it with Wear Blue Day. And that's something CASA, KCSL, and Hope Unlimited all use that hashtag. And it's just a way to say, hey, I am here to support kids who are going through really awful situations. We want to help prevent that. So, any other questions?
Anybody else want to speak from your group, or are they just
Anyone?
up there?
I'd love not to be in front of the microphone.
Just in case some of you are not aware of what Kansas Children's Service League does, we have been in Iola for 2 years, and we go into the homes to work with families, to work with children, prenatally up to age 5, and we provide services for them, we provide referrals for them, and so we are more than welcome to present at any organization that would be willing to listen to what we do, to spread the word that, you know, our home visiting services are there for support. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact our office on that part of it too.
Okay, if I could, for just a moment, I'm Kathy Lyncham with CASA. And CASA for the 31st Judicial District covers a 4-county area. So we are in Woodson, Wilson, Neosho, and Allen County, and spread pretty thin because of our membership. Also because of the need for there to be supportive foster parenting for children, especially those with the most substantial needs. Oftentimes our foster placement for our kiddos is not within this 4-county area. I currently have 3 kiddos in Derby. So my regular mileage is accelerated, essentially. But just to make sure the awareness is there, as you said, it's spread all over. It goes everywhere. And it seems like it might be something in a small town area, but it's everywhere, and children are hurt.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, it's,
We have 2 we'd like you to sign as well.
okay. Do you want these also signed? Okay, let's read this. I'll sign them and then I'll bring them over to you. Well, on behalf of the city of Iola, it's my honor to declare April Child Abuse Prevention Month. The proclamation reads, whereas we can build healthier, safer, and thriving communities if we take the same approach to raising families that we do to tending a community garden on a shared piece of land. And whereas children are locally grown and have a right to be safe and to be provided an opportunity to thrive, learn, and grow. And whereas hope and commitment are powerful fertilizers that strengthen and support Kansas families, thus preventing the far-reaching effects of maltreatment, providing the opportunity for children to develop healthy, trusting family bonds. And whereas we must come together as partners to nurture, heal, and grow together, because prevention happens in partnership. And whereas by growing a better tomorrow for all children together, we can ensure that Kansas children will grow to their full potential as the next generation of leaders, helping to secure the future of this state and nation. Therefore, I, Stephen French, Mayor of Iola, Kansas, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you. Can we get a picture as well?
Let me sign these and I'll come out there and give them to you. You're outside your element, I almost didn't recognize you.
Finally retired again.
Thank you. Thanks for everything you guys do, we appreciate it. Thank you. What do you want to do?
Can we get a picture? Can we like get behind the? Yeah, behind the.
Sure, I'll take it down. Come on up.
You don't need that, Carl.
Carl, you don't have to take this picture. Come on up.
So next thing.
Okay. You need to be in it. One of those ladies, why don't you come on up here?
Oh, we don't be behind the.
No. I can stay over.
Jake, you want to get in?
Oh, I'm okay.
I guess we'll squeeze in to begin.
There we go, like you like each other.
Nick, are you taking selfies?
Just playing with the settings. Yeah, thanks, ladies. You have a slow time.
Appreciate all you do.
I see that. That's good. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have executive session for non-elected personnel. Can we get a motion? What do you think? 10 minutes.
I move the city council recess into executive session for 10 minutes pursuant to matters of non-elected personnel. The executive session shall include the mayor, city council, and human resources director. Regular meetings shall reconvene in the city council chamber at 6:20.
Yes. That motion, do we have a second? I'll second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, meeting is called back to order, and we are ready for Scott Shreve, roundtable on solar presentation. Scott?
Okay. I have Rick on line here, and Rick is kind of the technical side of this. I'm clearly not the technical, Joel knows that. So I'm not the technical side, so I'm gonna let him talk a little bit, and I apologize. I thought, I don't have any handouts for you. I think you've seen it. It was sent to you, but it's a little different. The only thing that's different is the sites in front of the solar site here. But I'm gonna just go ahead and go to the next page here. And Rick, go ahead and go ahead. You see the page there that it's on.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Everybody here okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so this first slide shows us your location inside the United States as far as potential for solar energy. So it tells you how many kilowatt hours of electricity can be made by spending $1 on a kilowatt of a solar panel. You're actually in a pretty good location here in southeastern Kansas. You're going to produce about the same amount of energy relative to your invested capital as the states that are further south of you. North Carolina is a booming solar state, and your potential is equal to them. Each of these color bands, as you go further north, you lose about 5% energy potential. As you go further south, you gain about 5%. So if you read in the paper how solar is booming in New York and Pennsylvania, those are subsidized markets. The same solar panel in your town is going to generate about 20 to 25% more energy. So you're in a pretty good situation in the United States. If you go to the next slide, I'll show what our design is. So this is the solar layout that we did as the basis.
This is the one. I'm gonna just go around here, if that's okay. And so it's basically the site, so go ahead, Rick.
Okay. The slide that you had before, we did a 4 megawatt solar farm on city-owned land just to the west of the Russell Stover building.
Okay.
When we presented this to your electrical group with Matt, Corey, and Mike, they were suggesting that we move the solar farm to the western edge of your property and leave space along the road as frontage for future pad sites for economic development. And so that's what this new layout is. We set aside 3 pad sites that are each 5 acres. So they're 525 feet of frontage from the road, 425 feet
in a north-south direction. So if somebody were to build on those pad sites, we need them to not build a tall structure within 100 feet of the solar farms. There's no shades. So it's a buildable area of 425 by 425 feet. And then at the southern boundary of the solar farm, there's a larger pad site that's 10 acres. And then that bounds against the Little Creek wetland area that can be built upon. So this allows you to build a 4 megawatt solar farm. We're going to connect into your substation. It's just about 1/2 of a mile north of Miller Road. There, at your connecting voltage is 12.47 kV. The pictures on the right show roughly what the before and after look like. So right now it's a nice flat field. And then afterwards, the technology that we're using is called single axis trackers. So the solar panels you see there, they're aligned on a north and south axis, and they rotate with the sun from east to west. So in the morning they'll be tilted to 50 degrees to the east. At noon they'll be flat, and then in the afternoon they'll be 50 degrees to the west. By rotating the panels with the sun, you gain about 15 to 20% more energy, and the cost only increases about 5%. So this is a way of getting the lowest total cost of energy. In that picture on the right, you can see that each of those solar panels are about 3 feet by 6 feet. That's the size. So the total height from the ground is around 11 feet. So you wouldn't really be able to see these from a distance like you could with a wind turbine, for example. The panels produce direct current, so the sun strikes them. It's a photovoltaic panel, produces DC just like your cell phone battery, for example. And that direct current is collected and converted through an inverter device into alternating current. And then a transformer steps that voltage up and ties into your substation. So from the perspective of the city's electric grid, you'll be self-generating about 4 megawatts of power on sunny days at noon. And that will just be supplementing the power you're buying from the grid. So the solar farm's in sync with the grid. The fence boundary that we have is about 25 acres that you need for a solar farm. This is 4 megawatts AC that you have, and that's 5.25 megawatts DC. That's adding up the total power of all the solar panels that we have. And we do this design layout with some software. It looks at your specific weather patterns. It has a satellite model for every 10 square kilometers in the United States, and it runs a prediction of what you can expect to produce over a total year. And I'll be showing you on a later slide that you generate more in the summer and less in the winter. But over the average year, you'll generate about 9,700 megawatt hours of electricity every year, 9,700,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. And that will vary by as much as 10% from year to year. So in the sunniest year, you might have 10% more than that. In a overall cloudier year, you might have 10% less than that. But solar is very reliably going to generate more in the summer, less in the winter, more at noon, none at night. There. I'll pause here before we go to the next slide just to see if you had any general questions on this design or solar in specific.
I've got a lot of questions today, but right now, how do you mow around these things?
So the vegetation control, what we do is we plant a native grass that doesn't grow too tall. It doesn't have to be kept, the grass doesn't have to be kept like a golf course. And so we typically do a chemical treatment, spraying to keep the weeds down, and then plant a native grass that grows and will fold over less than a foot height. You just can't have grass or weeds growing up over the bottom edge of those panels. And then you can mow in between those rows by driving down. The distance from one row to the next is 22 feet. And so a mower can't go down between those rows. But we would rely on chemical treatment to keep the weeds and anything tall growing down.
And is the mowing, is that up to the city? one of our departments to do?
No, what we're proposing, so the way that solar is financed in the United States is that when the solar project goes in service, the owner of that project can get a 26% tax credit, so a tax credit equal to 26% of the cost of the project. And that credit is applied against their federal income tax bill. They can also accelerate the depreciation of the project, and that reduces their tax bill. The city doesn't pay taxes, so if you were to build this and just pay cash, you would lose that benefit. And for a private company, that tax benefit, the total is about 44% of the total cost. So if you build this project, it costs you almost twice as much as what a private entity would pay to build this. Now, in the long run, the city has a much lower cost of capital than any private entity. So the structure that we come up with is that we would build this and operate it for 5 years. The IRS requires the original owner of the project to continue to own the project for 5 years, or they're subject to recapture of that tax credit. And after the anniversary of the 5th year, the city would have an option to buy the project at what's called fair market value. And that's about 65% of the original cost. So during that first 5-year period, there's a fence line there around the project, and we'll be maintaining everything inside that fence line. The city's going to be metering the electricity that comes to your substation, and you're going to pay a fixed amount per megawatt hour of electricity, and that'll be part of Scott's presentation. And so during that 5 years, we'll be maintaining the project. In addition to vegetation, the maintenance is pretty easy with these solar farms compared to like natural gas or diesel turbines you might be used to. So we have a 24/7 monitoring system. We monitor it remotely. There's not a lot going on for 2/3 of the time. At night, there's not any energy being produced. A lot of things can be diagnosed remotely and even fixed or reset remotely. Once a month, we do a in-person site inspection checklist, taking pictures, checking terminations and things like that. Twice a year, we do scheduled maintenance, and that's in the spring and the fall. So you're going to make half your energy in the 4 summer months, June to September. So right before you go into that peak period, we do a scheduled maintenance, make sure everything's ready for the summer. That includes flying a drone over the solar farm with an infrared camera that will check every individual module, for example. And then we'll do another maintenance in the fall, getting ready for the winter season. And then on top of those, 3 times a year, we have additional vegetation control. We will be measuring how much soiling, how dirty those modules are getting, and if they need to be washed, we can schedule a washing. Most solar farms in your areas either need no washings or at most once a year. So we would be taking care of all of that for you for 5 years. After the city elects to buy out the project in year 5, then that maintenance will become your responsibility. You could either do it in-house or you could contract a third-party company. But you'd have 5 years of observing how we do it, learning and getting ready to take it over. So that would just become a question for you guys 5 years from now.
So you said that in those plots next to it, that no one could build a tall building. What's your definition of a tall building?
We need to have about 3 times the height of buffer space. So I put in a 100-foot buffer. They would be able to park trailers there, have parking lot, but just outside that 100-foot buffer, we need something less than 40 feet high. So 4 stories or less would be okay. When we're talking with the electrical group, it sounded like 20 to 30 feet would be the common height of a structure you might expect to have there.
What's the depreciation value for the business in the first year?
So if we're able to finish the project this year, and we're getting kind of close to being able to do that, but if we were, then we could actually depreciate at 100% of the project cost. And it's a 5-year accelerated depreciation schedule. It's, if you're familiar with depreciation, it's the modified accelerated cost recovery schedule makers. So it goes 20%, 36%, 22%, 12%, 6% if I remember, something like that. So there's a schedule that you have, and you recover all that depreciation over 5 years.
So basically, by the time the project was completed, your guys' interest in it would be zero. It would have depreciated to basically, you guys would have gotten what you put into it back, and then the city would buy it for 65% of the value?
No, the total value of the depreciation and the tax credits is 44% of the project cost. So you have depreciated all of the project, but you haven't gotten that money back. Your only federal tax rate right now is 21%. The tax entities that take this value usually have a combined federal and state tax rate of about 25%. So they're not getting all their money back. And that's a good point. Our process of what Priority Power does is we're a developer, so we develop this project on behalf of the city. We earn a fixed development fee. We found financiers, entities who take these tax credits and depreciation, and they will lend debt for the other part that's not paid with tax benefits, and we put those together for you. Our goal is to get the lowest dollar per megawatt hour for the city. We don't earn any more or less by having a higher rate or a lower rate. We show you open book everything who's earning what, and we'll explain how these things are being earned. If you were to have a business, for example, that wanted to earn those tax credits, we would gladly incorporate that. We've had this conversation with Russell Stover, for example, about taking those tax credits. If you had an individual or a bank that wanted to provide that debt, we'd be glad to use those. What we find out, I always start local, try to make all the benefits go to local people as quickly as much as possible, then go to the county, the state, the region, and so on, U.S., and then we go worldwide for some things. What I find, though, is that, like with Russell Stover, just getting them to commit, it's not their core business, so even though they do pay income tax and they could realize those tax benefits, trying to find the right person inside that company that agrees to understand how this works and to write that check, it becomes difficult. But we're very willing to work with anybody who would like to take tax credits or to effectively lend money to a project at the rates that we're able to get.
And you said this was a fixed cost of the megawatt hour?
So the structure that we have on a later slide, it escalates. So it's 2% per year escalator, and we find that that's the lowest total cost in the city. We can't do a fixed rate at basically the levelized rate for 5 years. We also find some cities, they don't think they can save enough money in the first 5 years to buy the project out. So you actually have an option to buy it at every 5-year interval. So if you couldn't save 65% of the cost of the project in 5 years, at year 10, there's a buyout option for 50% of the cost of the project. At year 15, it's 35%. At year 20, it's 20%. And so if you think, just knowing your economics, your method of setting money aside, that 10 years is a better time frame than 5, then we could adjust the power price for that. But the lowest total cost of the city will be for the city to buy the project out in year 5.
I was meaning for the megawatt hour generated, what would the actual cost for the electricity? Because I'm assuming that if you put this plant together, you're going to charge the city for the electricity generated from it.
Yeah, that's right. So with the 5-year option, the average is $37 per megawatt hour.
Yeah, we've got slides for that.
37 per kilowatt hour.
Megawatt hours of 3.7 cents per kilowatt hour.
go to that slide.
Yeah, we got.
There's a slide coming up showing
But,
that.
again,
Those are on slide.
we're here, this is just for informational purposes, right? We're just trying to get the great questions, not trying to stifle that. Do you have any other technical questions, or more kind of the design and any questions that you have of this, I mean, kind of the, grass or, what, any other questions about maybe the technical side or just the site itself or?
What's the life expectancy of the solar panels?
We designed for a 35-year expected useful life. The solar panels have a 25-year warranty. And there's some of the brands have a 30-year warranty. Now they do degrade slowly, so the solar panels will degrade as a whole plant. It'll degrade at 0.4% per year, so just under 0.5% per year. And that's one of the reasons we overbuild the DC side, because that 5.25 megawatts DC, that will shrink slightly every year. But after 30 years, the warranty from the manufacturer is that you'll still be at 80% of the original output. Now, since there's no cost of fuel, the sunshine is free, there's no reason to stop operating the plant after that warranty ends in 30 years. A lot of people are planning on 40-year lifetimes. It's just that in the U.S., the oldest solar farms like this are 15 to 20 years old. So it becomes a bit of conjecture if they can go past 40 years. There is a solar farm in Japan that was started in the late 1970s, and they're still operating it. These things are just very, very low maintenance and very rugged.
How much does it cost to get rid of these panels when they're non-functional?
Yeah, so most commercial solar farms, the land lease clause has a removal decommissioning clause, and some counties even require there to be a decommissioning bond. And for exactly that reason, what if the owner disappears and the county gets stuck? So every time that this has been studied, the analysis has come back that the scrap value of the steel, copper, aluminum is pretty substantially more than the cost of tearing everything out and replacing it. And so if it's ever required, then we get a decommissioning bond from an insurance company, somebody you know is going to be around for 50 years. And the cost of those bonds are very low because they've done these studies and have come to the same conclusion that the scrap value of the materials are going to exceed the cost that it's going to take to rip everything out of the ground. There's just no chemical spills or environmental risk that you have like with other power plants. You guys did your homework.
Any questions, any other questions so far? Okay, so the next slide,
Yeah, we can just go through the next two slides pretty quickly.
this is the, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, this just shows on average how much energy you're going to be producing for each month of the year and each hour of the day on the left side. And so as I said, you're going to be generating about half of your power for the year, about half the annual power will be generated in 4 months through the summer. And you can see that in the summer months, you also start to generate electricity earlier in the day and continue generating later in the afternoon. The curve on the right is one summer day as an example. And so you can see that in the morning, the output ramps up pretty quickly, and it reaches the maximum value of 4 megawatts, and then it drops pretty quickly in the afternoon. The shape of this curve is because we have a tracker system, and so one advantage of the tracker is that it will cause that curve to ramp up faster and stay high longer. Other technologies that some cities that put projects in 2-3 years ago, they use what's called a fixed tilt system, where the modules are just angled to the south, and the shape of their curve on the right is more of a parabola, and so you don't generate as much energy each day. So these trackers are what gives you that more power. And again, these are average values. It's called a 50th percentile or a megawatt hour of electricity from a solar farm. You receive from the Kansas tracking system, you receive one REC, renewable energy certificate. It's solar, so it's an SREC. Those RECs are how people get quote unquote renewable energy. And so your 4 megawatt system will be generating 9,710 of these RECs a year. You also are currently generating about 12,000 wind RECs every year on your wind contract. So between the wind and the solar, you'll be at just over 20,000 megawatt hours. So somebody like Russell Stover that's using 18,000 megawatt hours per year, they could buy all those RECs from you, say that they're 100% renewable. And since they have a Swiss parent and a corporate goal of being sustainable, your utility is able to let them meet that need. And then these 4 little graphics show you kind of in a sense of things that you know. This is like 1,500 cars. So you're saving the environment equal to taking 1,500 cars off the road or converting them to electric. It's 800 homes worth, or planting 8,000 acres. So it's a pretty significant environmental and sustainability boost for your town.
So it's pretty, the SRECs, or the renewable energy credits, is kind of a big deal. Where people want to be green, right? I mean, you see a lot of ads on Super Bowl, and you see Google and Budweiser, and everybody wants to be green. They're going to be 100% green or 100% renewable by 2030. And so they basically, that's what they do. They buy the RECs from the wind or the solar production. And so that's what you're saying. If you decide to put in the solar panels, you've got the wind at 12,000, about 20,000 megawatt hours. You have roughly about 20% of your supply or your power is renewable. And so then you can sell those RECs. And we've sold those RECs in the past, and they continue to be. They were a quarter, and then they're 50 cents, and they're about, I think the last one we sold were about $4, $3 or $4. So anyway, there's value in those RECs, right? And so anyway, that's kind of the point here. The next slide is where I get I get to talk a little bit, which is great. Really, the purpose of this is the power cost. Why are we here? Well, natural gas prices have jumped dramatically in the last year and a half. I mean, before the city was exposed to the market about 40%. Because the natural gas prices were $1.50 or $2, and so the corresponding energy piece was about $30 or $35. So we were buying as much as we could for $30 when natural gas was $2, $1.50. Now, after the storm last February, the storm, of course, went crazy, and we now are finally getting some stability, I guess. But we're seeing gas prices. Today it was $4.50. So it's doubled in price in the power, in the gas, and that's what turns the gas generators. And so the cost of power goes from about $30 to, again, double that, about $60. So now we're buying power today, we're buying it for $60, but last year before the storm, we were paying $30. So all this is showing that we were paying, if you average for the year, this is year-to-date February, just as an example, we were about $32 or $33 in 2020. The storm was awful last year, but now we're at almost $50 or 5 cents a kilowatt hour. We have to go back to like 2015 for those prices and what the power costs were. And that's when gas prices were at that level. Any questions there? So, again, this is kind of what I just said, but the chart here on the side, this is the natural gas prices, and you can see it for years, it just stayed at $2, $1.50, $3. It was very calm. And then as far as the storm hits, and now, of course, with even at your gas pump, you're seeing $4 gas at the gas pump instead of $2.50 or $3. And that's the same thing you're seeing with natural gas. And so that's when I get concerned that now, okay, what can we do to help lower or put a hedge, if you will, on the city on your cost of power, if you will, instead of let's get at least try to reduce that exposure that you have from 30% to 20%. And that's really what we're trying to do, is just trying to put another hedge, you've got wind, you've got base load pieces, you've got your Wärtsilä, you've got your diesel generators, and now proposing to look at the solar. And the solar prices, as Rick said, is about a $35 to $40 price. I'm showing that I think that you're gonna save about $200,000 a year putting into solar versus what the market is. So here's, again, there's a lot of numbers. Unfortunately, there's a lot of math involved. But for the most part, what we're proposing is it'd be a PPA, because we're talking about Priority Power would own the solar field for 5 years, and the PPA would start at $35, and it would go up, like I said, 2% a year for 5 years. And then after year 5, your buyout would be $4.5 million at 65%. If you decide to go 10 years, then that price starts at $36.50, and it averages about $40 for that 10-year period, and it's about a 3.5 million, roughly. It's about $1 million savings or less at year 10 and in year 5. And so again, what you're paying today, what we're seeing, Mike and Matt and Corey, what we're seeing, the prices are about $60, $50, $60, $70. And we'd be buying about, again, 10,000 megawatt hours at this $35 to $40 power. We also get RECs that we just talked about. There's $3 or $4 RECs that you guys get, so you can take that off the top. So would lower the cost of the power from, again, $38 to $33, $34 as you sell those RECs. Any questions? Kind of blitzing through that a little bit, but I mean, it's really, like I said, it's really a decision as far as we're concerned. If you want to go forward, if you at least want to go, evaluate, get more firmer numbers. These are some projections, these are estimates of what we think the cost of the project will be. We'll get the financing. Again, we're indifferent of the financing, but we think we've found some pretty good players and partners to partner with and put this together. And we've tried to drive down the price as much as possible.
So the RECs would not come into play unless we purchased the system?
No, you would get the RECs day one. You get the RECs just like you do on the wind.
So they wouldn't stay with Priority Power?
No, it's yours. Those RECs are yours.
We'd be buying the power directly from them.
Correct.
Which is where we get the ability to sell it to somebody as renewable energy.
Correct, right. And this, I'm sorry, is there a question?
I have a question, Scott. You've been our consultant for a lot of years, and based on, nobody predicted gas would jump up like it did,
right,
and then the cost of diesel, but if that's the today norm, and they're gonna stay up, is this build enough? Is this big enough? And so, if you're here looking at, I think you said a 4 megawatt,
right.
Is it beneficial, and is there some savings to look at a 6 or an 8, double it? And are you going to do a quick, if it's 4.5 mil at the end of 5 years, you can just go 9 mil. Is it truly a double the cost while you're here, or would there be a savings if we look at a bigger bill?
Rick?
So, I was on mute. So at the end of the slide deck, I did include a 7.5 megawatt layout. That fit pretty comfortably on your land, but it would use up the area we had reserved for the pad sites. 7.5 megawatts is going to be on a dollar per watt basis. It's going to be about 10% cheaper. 2.5 megawatts is about the right block size for getting the lowest cost. That's the size of the transformer, and that would be two blocks, it's called, to a 2.5 megawatts. So if you stay in that increment, you're going to be a little bit cheaper than doing 4 megawatts, which we designed kind of custom around your land and your power consumption that's currently unhedged. If we go larger than 7.5 megawatts, we have to start to fit into the contours of that property. There's again a little riverine structure as a wetland and a floodplain there. I think I got up to as large as 9 megawatts, but you started kind of losing the bang for the buck there. So if we did want to look at larger, 7.5 megawatts would probably be the right upper limit, but you would be using all of that land that we have reserved for pad sites.
So
And it could be done as a second phase also.
right, and we did a second phase, we didn't really talk about storage, battery storage, and there's, you know, EV chargers, and, I mean, electric cars coming, and there's a lot of things that, a microgrid, and kind of, just a lot of things. I think we just wanted to kind of make you aware of what's going on, prices, your costs are going up, and what I'm suggesting is kind of, let's get some hedges in here at a $35, because even the Wartsillas that you guys are, they're a great product, at $4 gas, it's a $35 or $40 just for the fuel. But again, the Wartsillas we can run, you know, during the night and weekends and whenever it's dark, I mean, when the sun's up.
One question, if a Wartsilla runs 24 hours, what's one Wartsilla producing?
What's that producing? 5 megawatts.
5 megawatts. And 8-9 years ago, we were told a Wartsilla was like 10 million. Do we know what it would cost to replace a Wartsilla today?
I haven't checked on our XX units. They discontinued it. The next version up is a little bit bigger unit, Steve.
Like 7 megawatts? 6, 7 megawatts?
No, it's like just short of 10, like 9.8 or 9.7 now is what replaces our unit.
And that would be, I would think they're about 15
About
million.
15 million.
You remember when we sat down at Fort Sill several years back when they came out from Kansas City and met us? You remember what the dollar number was on that upgraded unit?
It used to be $1 million a megawatt, and I bet that's north of that.
So 12 to 15 million if we replace one of those versus 5 years in on a buyout at 4.5.
And what, again, don't want to confuse you, and a lot of numbers, a lot of things here, but the Wartzilla is iron in the ground, and you're paying a mortgage, right, for the right to use it, to put the natural gas in, to produce it at $50 today, okay? This is an energy product, right? And so it's a different animal. You're paying, and this is what you may not have in your slide deck that I gave. You're spending roughly $600,000 today for that 9,700 megawatt hours at the $60, right? At $60, you're paying roughly $500,000 to $600,000 a year for that 9,700 megawatt hours. And we're suggesting you spend roughly 350,000 megawatt hours. I'm sorry, $350,000 for that same 9,000 megawatt hours. A lot of numbers. Yeah.
Out of curiosity, just because it's kind of comes up in my mind, it charges during cloudy days, but obviously it doesn't charge as much. As far as easing our dependence on natural gas and gas in general. Supposing a series of storms, clouds, whatever blew into the area, what would that do as far as leaving us open to the market? I mean, what is the raw end of
No, that's a great question. If it's cloudy, your load's down, right? And we do, Mike and those guys, we did buy a block of energy that's a great piece of power that's 24/7. So we're in pretty good shape. The exposure is, again, we're 30% exposed today. If it's cloudy and we're 20%, if you will, then we're only exposed kind of on those shoulder hours, and that's, again, we'll notice it, but it's not going to be, we're not as reliant as you said for those prices and that power supply. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's just, you're right. The cloudy, our load's going to be down, and then again, as he mentioned, your load is up during the summer, and that's when we're going to see the production out of it.
Matt, I'm curious, how would it be possible to come up with this 4.5 million in 5 years? What's your thoughts?
It could be bonded out with the health of the fund. We could see if it could be a cash payment made. I think part of the next step would be discussing that step even further. But it would be either bond or just straight cash payment.
And mean, there's, again, it can be done a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
It could be put in the ECA, it could be saved, it could be a, general transfer, not general transfer, but utility transfer.
Just roughly, I'm gonna put together the rough numbers. So this would save $200,000 a year. So we'd spend $4.5 million to save $200,000 a year,
Well,
which would mean like a 22-year return on investment, which is a pretty long one. But then we would also have the credits that we can sell, but then we're also losing the
And you have the
revenue
upkeep too
that we're
on that.
making on the land now, which is rented out to a farmer. To me, that's the financial
no,
decision.
it's a good way of looking, it's an interesting way of looking at it. I'm just, you're spending 600,000 today. Like I said, I'm just trying to think through this. So you save 200,000. So
We'd also be saving money by spending less on natural gas to generate energy.
we would say, we're gonna save,
Okay.
my perspective, you're gonna save, in 5 years, you're gonna save $1 million, roughly $1 million, right? And so, and then if you have it in 2 years, you'd save roughly $2 million on what your cost, what it would cost if you didn't have the solar, if you were buying it from the market, right? So you'd be $2 million lighter with your customers, and that's a straight pass-through. Your customers are seeing you guys at your homes are gonna save $200,000 a year as a group. So I guess my point of that is amortizing that all over is it's about a $30 or $35 product for 30 years. The number you came up with, yeah, maybe that is a 22-year payback. Just trying to walk through that, and I haven't thought of it that way. It's really just an energy, you're buying the energy today, right, for 30 years. And it's just how do you finance that, or how do you fund it? How do you fund the purchase of that?
Okay.
Versus putting the $15 million up for the right to generate at $50. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Scott, who else in Kansas has purchased solar power in the last 10 years?
Well, we're installing 2 megawatts in Beloit, Kansas. We're, I don't know what percentage of build it is, but we plan to have that probably we hope mid-May. But it's all starting. We're meeting with a lot of cities and customers that are looking at renewable, looking at solar.
Actually, Carl, I can jump in. Bonner has
Johnson
one.
County, I think.
Sorry?
Bonner City has one.
Baldwin City.
Baldwin City,
Yeah.
And didn't
Osage-
Johnson County
Osage
spend
City.
about 25 million a few years back?
Say again?
Didn't Johnson County spend about 25 million several years ago?
I don't know that, Carl, I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, it's, Baldwin City and Osage City have them.
So I was looking a few years back of which cities had solar power. Perhaps it was when we were initially considering this a year ago.
Other questions? Again, this is just information, I'm not asking for anything. We're, in 2 weeks, we'd like for you to approve a project approval notice to move forward and kind of get more numbers. I think maybe that's the next slide, Rick. Yeah, and you may, good.
And just one more comment on the question about going larger, which I love, to go larger, but just if the city was considering that, I would do either 5 or 7.5 megawatts. Those are gonna be the 2 larger increments that would be the most effective.
So
And
we,
this slide shows the process that we use. It's, the feasibility study, the results of that are what we've shown today. It is an iterative process, so we've looked at multiple sizes, 2 megawatts, 4 megawatts, using the north part of your land, using the west part of your land, 7.5 megawatts and 9. We think that this is a good kind of Goldilocks size for the city, but we could look at other sizes. Once you have a size, a layout, piece of land, and are ready to proceed, then in the contract that we have, there's a project approval notice, and this is where we begin the development. So we just need to confirm that everything that we've used in our assumptions is going to hold water for you. When you're under your load and under 10 megawatts, there's not a lot of risk. into that development are getting binding EPC bids and procurement for the major equipment and making sure that these finances hold together. When the development is complete, we present to the city what are called definitive agreements. And the main ones are the power purchase agreement that has all the legal terms under which you buy the electricity and RECs, and then have the 5-year increment options to buy out the project. And then there's a land lease. So the project itself is an entity, so it'll be called Iola Solar LLC would be set up. And that entity would have ownership of the project, and that's the legal entity that the city would be buying 5 years from now. So the city would give a land lease with that entity for basically no cost rent, since the city's paying for that rent if they have it through the power purchase agreement. And then the interconnection agreement is an agreement for the city to let the solar project connect to your substation. And then we would further confirm with SVP that there's no transmission agreement, but there's not going to be as long as we stay under 10 megawatts. And then a property tax abatement, we ask for a 10-year property tax exemption allowed by Kansas. Again, any money the project pays in property taxes would just be passed through in the PPA rate. So those 4 agreements together, that's the contracts when the city's really committing to spend the money. The time between number 2 and number 3, that's about 90 days. So 3 months. And so what we'd like you guys to think about for the next 2 weeks, and we can talk about at the next meeting, is that project approval notice. And then those agreements would come out in about end of June, July timeframe.
Any questions?
I did see that Johnson County is still in the process of doing theirs. It's supposed to be online next year.
Okay.
320 megawatts.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be a utility
2,000
scale
acres.
project. Under the meter, that's be owned by a private
Yeah,
entity.
I think that's,
Next era energy.
yeah, next there. I don't know that that's, does it say they're building it? They're gonna build it?
Says they're moving ahead with it. It's supposed to be
Okay.
going in next year.
Okay.
There's been a lot of NIMBYs in these Kansas projects. The developer announces they're going to build it, and then the local entities deny the permits that they need.
Other questions? Matt, do you have any?
I don't have any questions, I just be more for you all, if you're willing just to take that next step with, so Scott, at the next council meeting, what would be discussed?
Just really the project approval notice and the details of it, just kind of that agreement, going forward.
Would you review, Mike, maybe this is your question. What's our total capacity right now?
29.
29?
Excuse me?
Our total capacity right now?
28.6.
28.6?
Yeah.
And so that's 10 on the 2 Wardzillas,
Yes.
and then how much diesel?
Well, we got the 5 EMDs and the 3 cats.
So 12 and a half on the EMDs and 6, right?
Yeah, about, 6, called 6,
Right.
58 actually.
And then you said we had some wind.
Well, that's the energy piece. We get a little bit of capacity out of it, sorry.
But not much capacity.
It's, 3 megawatts of wind, we get 300 kW, 500 kW.
So we used to have a little bit of hydro, do we still have that?
We don't. We don't. We have the energy, we get the energy around about, we don't pay for the capacity.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Scott, I got one question. Where are you getting the norm? I mean, I know everything's wanting to go green and down that line of track, but I remember when natural gas was just shy of $12 an MCF. It's a roller coaster ride you got to ride out. I really think it might be back down there once, Because when it got that high, everybody, their brother poked holes and gas dropped like crazy.
Yeah, I don't, Mitch, I don't know.
I just wonder where you was getting this, to where the norm is gonna stay at $4.50.
$4.50 to $5, that's the projections, the experts claim it could be there for at least 4 or 5 years. But that's what
Yeah.
they're saying. And the production hasn't picked up like they thought it would. When $4 gas, you'd figure there'd be a lot more production, but they're not picking up yet. And as well, there's a lot of LNG and a lot of export, and they pay a heck of a lot more for gas elsewhere, and that's the problem as well. So it's kind of changed. I agree with you. It's a roller coaster. It has been a roller coaster.
Yeah, because I went back and looked last June, we was paying $2.70 for natural gas.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
What's
I'm not
different
convinced it's gonna be that high
for
forever.
us, a lot of
yeah.
oil and gas customers in West Texas.
I'm sorry?
And we're building some solar for them behind the meter. What's different this time than every other time I've seen this cycle is that it used to be that when they were making a lot of money, they would drill more. And right now, their investors are saying, give us the money back. And so their investors aren't allowing them to ramp up like they usually would because they're just wanting to take the cash out. So it seems to be something, this time, I know it seems the same, but this time does feel different than the last 5 cycles.
This might be a premature question, but I was wondering, do we know what the average savings to each customer would be if the city went this route? For the annual savings?
That's a good question. I'll have it back, I'll provide it to those guys next week, next time. It's a straight pass-through. The $200,000 would be, divided by real quick math, 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour. Just very quick, because about 100 million kilowatt hours is what you guys do a year. And so $200,000 on a million, on 100 million, would tell me, I think my decimal's right, I think it'd be 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour. And on 1,000 kilowatt hours, it'd be about $2, $20. Carry the 2, 1, I don't know. I'll get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
More probably just a question with companies and RFPs, is it, I mean, we're talking to a builder here, is this something that is supposed to go through an RFP type proposal?
We're not an EPC, and so we go through that RFP for you. We'll get a minimum of 3 bids from the engineering, procurement, construction companies that are qualified and willing to operate at this size and in this location. We show you everything open book. So our perspective is that we're able to pre-qualify who should be bidding, what they should be bidding on, and then help you evaluate those bids better than you'd be able to do if you were to do it on your own. And so that's the service fee that we earn as being the developer. But we'll show you at least 3 financing options, at least 3 EPC options. We don't always go with the lowest upfront capital cost option. We look at it from a long-term perspective. So like, for example, we're using a Nebraska-based entity that was just slightly more expensive than a North Carolina-based entity, but we felt the local connection made up for that.
And Steve, the way I say it is just, this is our energy consultant letting us know about a product that's available.
Sure.
That's what we pay him to do.
Sure, and I'm fine with that, I just wasn't sure if we're listening to one company or if they would do the RFP, so that satisfies our, any policy we have.
On that end, how many times would you want to have this conversation? I guess would be another way I would look at it. We haven't had it.
That RFP, when we hire an EPC, they're often a general contractor, and they'll split this up into subcontracts. And so we work with them. We can't force them, but we work with them to subcontract to local people. So often you might have an electrical contractor that couldn't be the full service EPC, but we'll get them included on some part of this project.
I don't have any issues with Al's been doing. And this, what we pay him to do is to find us energy products that are beneficial to us. Because you went through this process before, and again, times have changed, and prices have changed.
So you need direction from us?
They just need to, you describe what the next step would be.
Project approval notice is what we hope for you to approve. And, but again, I think we would like for you to kind of zero in on, 5 years or 10 years. We'll show you the dollar, we'll show you the math, if you will, the dollars and the project, and let you decide, from there.
I'd like to see it.
Sorry?
I'd like to see those numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, Carl?
Well, yeah, it's a lot to absorb and get familiar with and comfortable with the numbers, so.
Okay.
Mark? Joe? Ken?
It's a lot of money to spend out. I mean, I'll keep an open mind and.
I mean, we bought extra power in the past to give us the capacity, but we're talking about an energy component here. And so it may not be so much savings as it is a statement that we're trying to go green.
Well, there's a savings, and
There is a savings.
You spend $2 million a year on the energy side of it, and it's just, it's a lot of money, but you're paying it anyway. And I know, again, it's just a different way.
It's just a different way of
When you
where it
just say
comes
that the consumer's gonna only save 2/10 of,
It'd be about $25.
Right, I mean-
It'd be about $25 a
you're spending
year.
a ton of money, just, I mean, I know, I just have to see all the stuff.
Okay.
And I guess you have to look at the bigger picture. If we didn't have the EMDs, the word SOAs and all that, what would our power be?
Absolutely.
So you have to look at the broader aspect of it.
That's a good point. They're very valuable, your generators.
And maybe that could be some of the figures you provide. What's the real cost of energy if you're not a producing city as Iola is considered?
Yeah, the $32, $34 stuff, the other cities were paying that don't have capacity, and they're buying it cheap, but it's about $50 or $60 all in. So you're saving, having your generators, you're saving, and so it's just,
I would like to know how many counties in Kansas have solar.
One question that I'll have, and Kim asked it, and the answer we got kind of didn't really give an answer, was what does it cost to take it apart?
Well, I just Googled it, and it says you can't, there's so many different parts to it, you can't just recycle it as a whole.
Yeah.
It has to be all broken down and stuff. And it's expensive.
No, that was what I was asking, what is the cleanup cost on it? Because you'd asked, and he had said that it was basically the steel made it worthwhile, but to me, that's not really the answer to what it costs.
It's the chemicals in the panel itself that you have to be careful with.
So do you want to know how many solar projects there are in Kansas?
Yes, I would.
Well, 1,263 residential, 238 commercial, and 6
How many
utility.
city?
Six.
Six.
6. These are 2019 figures.
And I suppose it plays into part, keep in mind that it's our utilities that builds our operating budget. We rely less on property taxes.
there's 66 municipal in Kansas, and there's 6 of them, I guess, because that's the number, so there's 10% already, and they're coming. I mean, we didn't have wind 5 years ago, and now everybody has wind. So it's coming, just a matter of if and when.
Matt, do you need this in a motion or just hearing the yays?
No, I think we did.
We're good.
Scott got his direction.
Okay.
Thank you guys
Thank you very much.
for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're ready for new business, street department 3/4 ton truck.
I'm Vince Ladner, purchased a 3/4 ton pickup. As you can see that the one we have now is a 2004 model. It's been pushed back several years through the front. The truck currently has over 104,000 miles on it. It's starting to show a little bit of its age. And I took bids out for the motors, J. Hatfield, and Shield Motors. And Shield Motors don't want to turn in a bid.
So, there was a lot of paperwork that came with this. Is that just because there was only one response?
It's because that's not normally what we do, it's just.
Okay, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
So are you comfortable going with a Dodge, since isn't most of your equipment Ford?
It is Ford.
Since they, Shields Motor bid you a Ram pickup?
Yes. And I had no problem with the Dodge pickup.
The only thing I thought of was, why do you need a 6.4 or whatever engine?
Well, 3/4 ton, we'd be using for pulling too. You need a bigger motor. And the Fords that we have now, 1 ton, are the same size motor.
Questions?
I make a motion to approve the purchase of a new 2022 Ram 2500 tradesman Shield Motors with a total price of $42,375.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay on my truck.
Sanitary sewer camera update. Last thing we want to think of is a camera in the sewer system.
Well, you ain't gotta worry about that, it's working right now. Exactly why we're here, because the current one doesn't work.
We purchased it back in August of 2007, and obviously it's ran its course. This is the second, that would have been the second one we've ever had. And the advancements they've made from 7 to now is, I mean, it's night and day difference, but we was budgeting to upgrade anyways, and ours actually, the way the pigtail cord hooks up to it, they've made changes to it, and that's what keeps messing up on ours. And they don't think they can even, if it's certain pieces of it, they can repair, other parts of it, it's just about obsolete. I mean, nobody wants that age of a camera anymore. But he did offer to give us a little bit of trade-in. It ain't much, but at least it's getting out of there.
What's the expected lifetime?
You know, I think we get 15 years out of the next one because they just really designed them a lot. I guess I want to say they're seal-type waterproof. I mean, because they are down in the water, submerged 24/7 when you're using them, because you just raise the camera up out of the water, because you normally typically don't bag off a main of your camera to interfere with flow. So if we get that out of it again, I think we'll be doing good, because actually the city paid back in then, it was $62,000 is what they paid for that camera then. So we're using a lot of our components, the shell, just basically refurbishing the camera and the monitor system, and saving quite a little bit of money, because like I say, in 2007 we paid $62,000 for it. So it hasn't went up considerably, but we still got a lot of the parts we can use on ours. So they're just kind of cutting it and refurbishing ours.
So basically all of the software and electrical.
It's totally different now,
Okay,
how they connect to the real.
Putting that much money into a 15-year-old technology.
Pardon?
I would have some issues spending that much money in 15-year-old technology. Okay.
So you feel comfortable and confident in just upgrading and refurbishing the current unit versus buying new?
Yeah, actually, because everything's gonna be new except for the shell, the case. It's a concealed containment unit. You're paying $30-some thousand for something that we already have. They just slide everything new. Everything's gonna be new except for the shell, is what they're actually proposing to do. And that's pretty much, if you had the original version like we had, that's about what everybody does. They just upgrade theirs instead of buying the complete unit.
Yeah, and Mitch, I put in there the bones of the system are good, yeah, shell's a better word than bones. That's a better word. Yeah.
They'll do all that.
Yes, they'll come pick ours up, take it up there, switch everything around, and bring it back to us. Pardon?
Make sure it's sealed.
Yeah, they'll do everything, and we cut some of the options off, like the wash down. We could take a shop and wash it, wash it down. I mean, like I said, we shaved a lot of options off we didn't feel it was necessary to get it down to this price.
And does this come with any kind of warranty or anything?
I believe it comes with a 2-year warranty on it, but it's only on certain pieces of it, because the pieces going down doing the nasty business, you know, it's got a warranty, but it ain't very long because it's.
As soon as it touches the water. So it says that the cable reel is 1,000 feet, but 1,650 is optional. Is there any pay increase with that, or is it?
Actually, all we really need is 1,000's God's plenty, because we got manholes every 330 foot, and it just works everything harder, because a motor's spinning that reel in there, and, you know, the camera's got it's powered too, so you're just kind of dragging the life of everything down. I suppose some of the bigger cities, you know, they want to launch and just shoot and go, so.
Plus, this came in a little over 29,000 below what was budgeted.
Go for it.
I'd like to make a recommendation to approve the purchase of the Rover X camera system from Key Equipment and Supply Company for $90,975.
Second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you.
This is actually what you folks are, what if I pass that around, it's not fancy stuff.
Oh, I think you got that.
Yeah.
You got that,
Mhm.
okay.
Thank you.
Sewer lining project.
All right, Mitch, why don't you stay up there, but I'll go ahead and tell you this one. This is the ARPA project that I've been talking about since ARPA became a thing, whenever that was. Middle of last year, summer last year, I think it was. Of that $800,000 now, the city has 4, and we will get the other, the fancy word is tranche. We'll get the other tranche this summer, and that'll be our full allotment of 8. And along with what we budget on a regular basis, which is every 2 years, $200,000 to do the SIP lining, CIPP cured in place piping. Combine those two for $1 million project. You have the projected timeline there, right in front of you in the agenda item sheet. Then attached to that is the sewer lining list for 2022. When this whole thing got going, I had Mitch, and I told him what are the worst lines we have in town, and can you give me that list? And within a matter of minutes, he'd already sent it to me, so clearly he already had the list. So the 29 lines you see in front of you are the ones that need the rehab now. And those would be the ones that we would line up until the money runs out. Kind of how this project's gonna go. It's gonna be $1 million, and when we're done with the $1 million, then the project will be done. The plan would be release an RFP next month and award it sometime in June. It would come back here for a bid award. The summer of this year, we'll get our second allotment of $400,000. And then in the fall, you notice it says camera clean and point repair, and I have that explained underneath that. Before you can set the lines, you gotta know what's down there, because there's just more than a wastewater. So we have to get the roots, that be cleaning out the lines there. And then any kind of point repairs would be anything that SIP lining does not fix itself. And from my experience in Seneca, the Seneca system and the Iola system are similar age. My guess is you're gonna have a decent amount of point repairs. We had a lot in Seneca they had to do. They'd spend a few months doing that process, the camera, the cleaning, and the point repair before even getting to the SIP process. But those steps do clear the lines out and then get them ready for the lining itself. And again, we'll do all of this until $1 million runs out.
And is that preparation done in-house?
No, that'd be done by the contractor, yeah.
By the
And the red will be done first.
That is the plan, yeah.
Will you break these, go right down the list, or are you gonna put some of these, group these up? Because you got 8 of them that go from Buchanan to Douglas to Benton to Lincoln. Are you gonna try to do those as a group?
Typically, when the contractors come in, they look at the list we got and they kind of make their path. Because it depends on if we gotta go in and do a point repair, several point repairs, they'll switch over and do another section, so, and then they might come back and finish the section that they was in, because the city will have to dig up the point repairs and the collapsed pipe, that if the camera won't go, they're not gonna do it.
Back to the camera, how long is it gonna take you to get that new one in?
We probably won't have it when we start this project, but they're gonna rush it along for us. They said that, because they know ours is down. They're gonna try pulling their chains and getting one from another source. This is roughly what most of our sewer mains look like. That's how bad they are. That's not the city's, ours is actually probably worse in places. And that's what they do, they go in and shove that tube in.
The one thing I asked for when, it's probably been, what, 6, 7 years ago that we had our first lines. Have we looked at those? How's that holding up? And I only bring that up because the contractor engineer was here and I questioned the strength, the endurance and longevity. And he says, well, what we know now is we should get 25 years out of them. But the longest it's been in any pipe is 5 years. So I'm just curious with the amount of cracking and concave, how's it looking? Is it holding up pretty good?
We've dug them up to make new sewer taps, and actually you can't really tell the difference between this and SDR 35. I mean, it may be a little bit deformed because your pipe's deformed it's going in, but it's just, I mean, you gotta saw it out. You don't just hit it with a hammer and crack it and get in there and do your work. You gotta cut it out of the way. It's really durable.
Okay.
I mean, I can't see nothing wrong with it.
Well, and probably my concern was that he really didn't give a good explanation about the durability of it. You know, we're looking at images of Iola's pipes where the tops are kind of almost flat or a little V'd in, cupping, and so there's some automatic concern about can it sustain that when dump trucks and everything else go down the alley adding that weight.
Well, I guess the answer to that is, if the clay top held up that long, I mean, granted, we have got its life out of it, but it's been there 100+ years and held up. And it's kind of back when they first started laying a PVC pipe for water lines. Everybody was wanting to stay away from it because they said, oh, it's indefinite. Then they come back and say, no, it's more like 50 to 70 years, but really nobody knows. But 20 to 30 year life cycle is probably a lot better than going digging an alley up, because 9 times out of 10 you dig an alley up, you're going, first off, you gotta be about 5 foot wide. All the alley's taken up. And then you gotta tie to all the customer service lines, and you might be cleaning their foundation of their house, replacing it all the way back, because theirs is just as junk as the city's. I mean, it's just a vicious cycle, where they come in and shoot it, you see in the dimple, they take a laser down there, cut the tap out, and move on, and that's the plumber's responsibility out to there, or the homeowners. It's just timely and costly to lay sewer main complete rehab.
Well, I think this is a good way to use the ARPA funds. I support the proposal to take the 800,000 plus 400,000 that the city has budgeted and move ahead with the project. Bid it out. We still have to have an engineer put together a design proposal for us.
Well, we kind of had a master plan put together already.
Well, it's a master plan, but it's not an engineer's design proposal.
We'll work the details out there.
I think when we did this CIPP last time, was that a proposal put together by an engineer, or did we just give them our list and said, and the companies went with the list that we provided?
The first 2 times we made a list, and then I think the last 2 times the engineers made a list. But a lot of our list was done in the master plan, because they sent back pretty much they done where they sampled how much water was going down the main. You remember that we done the last time? And a lot of ours is in the same pool that they're talking about. But we picked some that wasn't in the same pool that they already had picked out because we know what they're like. We've been in them with our camera and, they're done. So we added them to the list.
Let me jump in here. That's also the engineering company that did the master plan can do this kind of work too. So I argue that we already have done that process, and kind of the same company that did the master plan could be our engineer for this. Is they're the Burns and Mac. The Burns and Mac, yeah. Burns and Mac is who we've been working with. Who I've been told the city's been working with for sewers since they started this for a long time. So I think you already have them.
Just for the benefit of the new people on the council, or anyone that, I guess, they're all new now, you might explain the whole, I mean, other than they're concaving, they're fracturing, and they're falling in, and the overall cost of replacing is beyond our budget. Explain the water issue with the runoff, and that's potentially a fine, right? If we allow too much water in the system?
I guess I don't know about that. I think might be talking about I-9.
Yes.
The inflow, and we're kind of melding topic D, so I was going to combine the two. An issue we're having with our inflow is we have manhole covers that have holes in them. And so the rainwater is getting is getting into our wastewater, and then we're processing it at the lagoons. One project we talked about when we got the ARPA funds was, do we want to do manholes or do we want to do SIPs? So for the manhole covers, we would get new frames and new lids, and the lids would be wouldn't have any holes in them, and so the water would go down the storm sewer as opposed to the sanitary sewer. So we had a discussion about it in my office about which one to do SIP or to do manholes, combine the two. When we came to consensus that SIP was the more important one to do, the much more pressing need, and then manhole covers would be something we would do later on. And 1.5 million, Mitch? Mm-hmm. If we did every manhole cover right now with a new frame and a new lid, 1.5 million bucks. That would be the next big project that that the sewer infrastructure needs. But that's what the mayor was talking about when getting rainwater into the sanitary sewer, and then also water gets in between cracks, water that gets down into the ground. Groundwater can get in through cracks in the mains as well.
One more quick question, just curiosity. The overall number of feet we have in town of sewer pipe, with what's been done and what we're projecting to do, where does that leave us with, are we at a 16th of our system or a 10th of our system? How enormous is what's left?
I'd say 80% of the city sewer mains are in good shape.
Okay.
Out of 75 miles.
80% good.
Because some of them, even though they're clay, was put in the tail end of when they're switching. They're still pretty good shape. You want to get a little more life out of them, and by then you're just laying PVC.
Sure.
And hopefully that's going to last our lifetime.
So we've got 60 miles of
Hey, Matt, I forget, how did we pay for the water tower repair? Was that out of the
Yeah, water CIP.
I can't remember, okay.
Yeah, water CIP.
Okay.
It's set back.
Okay.
So do the manhole covers, are they budgeted in that same 200,000 that's every 2 years? Is that a separate budget item?
I don't think we budget for manhole covers. I don't think it's ever been done.
No.
Yeah.
We set out, in 2005, it was going to replace them, but they are just freaking costly.
Yeah, evidently.
Well, the good news is the one in my alley behind my house, it's solid. It doesn't have holes in it, so that's one off the list.
I can feel the holes in mine.
So,
Well, I think the key to this whole maintenance thing is to keep our utilities strong financially, so we don't let any one of them go in the hole. And that allows us to have a little bit of extra money set aside for these repair projects, because you always are gonna have repairs.
This is like free money, so we need to
Free money, I just love free money.
Well,
Well, it's our money
everyone
coming back
got
to
it,
us.
so
Coming
we
back
got
to us.
something, but we need to do repairs, yes.
From an investment standpoint, I will tell you that the worst thing that you can do with a large influx of capital is to use it to pay down debt or make repairs. The best thing you can do for it is invest it where you make money on your money.
Yeah, that's.
We can't do this, no, this,
Since we cannot invest, the next best is
repair.
repairs.
CDs are
Protecting-
making 0.02 cents.
And to go along with what you said, Kim, I mean, it's not technically free money, it's federal tax
Right,
dollars
but-
that we've been allowed to get some of that back in our
Influx to
community.
us, yes.
So I think we absolutely need to pay due diligence to the city checkbook. And it's kind of a win-win to take care of such a big project on tax dollars and came back home rather than,
Because we couldn't
well, let's
do it
budget it
otherwise.
out of our income and have to raise rates or whatever. So it's good that we earmark this for that. So on that, Matt, do you need a motion or just?
yes, sir, yeah, to start the,
Start the bidding process?
yeah.
Okay, anybody?
I'll make a motion to provide direction to the staff to go forward on the ARPA Fund Sewer CIP lining project.
Second.
Got a motion, second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, thanks for your time.
It's not very
Getting closer.
Okay, now, yeah, I'll just keep talking about sanitary sewer. I think
Take this
we,
one?
yeah, so we covered the manhole lid replacement, continue the SIP lining. You're looking at grand total to SIP everything that we think we need to do, $3 million. We're gonna cut that down by a third with this project. I think in the short term, which would be next year, during budget time, we're gonna talk to you about Park East and Park West lift stations. I think those are gonna be the next two. Actually, we are in the park.
Last week working on them.
Yeah, we're at the point I don't wanna spend any more money repairing those things. We're just throwing it down the sewer. The lift stations need to be redone. And Mitch, when you tell them what redoing the lift station
Yeah,
is.
the ones we're wanting to do is the Smith & Love's vacuum primed. We're wanting to get downhole pumps in them. I feel it's a lot better design, and they can use a wet well, clear well, whatever you want to call it, and put rails in. It's a kind of, not cheap, but, if you do a total rebuild, you're probably into the $1 million plus, 900,000. If you do it this way, you're into $140,000, because you're using a lot of what your structure's there
So that'd
already.
be $1 million each, or 900,000 each instead of 140.
Yeah. But, I think it's the way to go, just kind of get with time.
Recently you did that, didn't you? Didn't you rebuild one?
Yeah, we done Vine Street, Kentucky and Ohio, and that was a pretty costly project when we done them. And like I say, we've had people come down and look at it, and they, we can squeeze pumps in, with the horsepower you need to get your lift and shove it and blah, blah, blah. So that's the route we're kind of going right now, is use what we have.
When were the Bassett Park East and Park West originally put in, you know?
Bassett was probably put in, it was the original one, Carl. And after the flood, they just done a half makeshift, Band-Aid repair on them, because we had the hatches up working on them so much. Just the panel boards and everything just got sopped and wet. And that's what they did at Howard, at Bassett, and the two down here in the park, was basically they just repaired the components in it that burned up. So I guess you could call it they're about 50% rebuilt right now, but the parts that burn up is the expensive parts, that we keep replacing because they just don't last very long. For the new ones, it's all sealed, the motor's sealed down there. You don't have to worry about vacuum priming, it just, float kicks on and she's out.
So if it floods again, it's okay?
Do what?
If the park floods again, it'd be okay?
Yeah, well, now if it gets
When
over
it
the control
floods
panel,
again.
That'd be one thing.
but the pumps itself would not be hurt, because they're made to be there.
So the lift station that we were referring to earlier that we approved on February 14th, it was 133,000
Yeah.
and change. So that's basically what you're.
That's kind of the approach we're looking at on these others.
Park East and
Yeah.
Park West.
Now, Bassett will be a little more expensive when we do it because it's actually a pretty good sized lift station. I mean, kind of, I guess a review, the sewer has a two-man crew. There's 12 lift stations, 75 miles of main, 5 of it's forced main, which means the lift station, when it kicks on, it's forcing it to an elevation, it can gravity back down to another lift station. And 874 manholes, so that's in a nutshell what goes on there every day.
And that's the 1.5 million,
Mm,
the 874 million.
Yeah, and then, we're looking at putting money back for a new jet rotor back truck. Ours is, I believe it was purchased in 2003. I mean, it just made a trip to Kansas City, get a pump put in it for probably $10,000 to $12,000, but we didn't have the money to buy a new truck right now, so you have to fix it. We had to have Chinook come up while ours was getting repaired and unplug a main for us. So,
Yeah, and actually, the sewer fund is in decent shape, and the sewer CIP is in decent shape, so it's not a money issue really, it's more just a priority issue of what needs to get done and when. Like, for instance, the back truck in 2025, that was in the budget when I got here. And so I guess if there's an issue with needing to get that sooner, then we can talk about it during budget time, but right now, I mean, 2025 would be the time to get that, but the two lift stations that sooner rather than later would be Park East and Park West.
The other lift stations, though, knock on wood, are fine.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's really only, like I say, there's 4 on the list here we probably need to look at.
Any big surprises coming up at the lagoon? I know the riprap and the solar bee or whatever you call it, we do good.
That's kind of Toby's cup of tea. I hate to step on his toes and answer a question that I probably shouldn't have.
And he'll be here at the next meeting, but just to answer your question, knock on wood, they're doing okay.
And the lift station in Bassett, you said it's a fairly good size one. Is that because one of the biggest portion, largest main cuts through there before?
Well, I think one of the reasons is the head pressure is trying to shove it all the way back to town, and then it goes around. They kind of routed that thing odd back in the day, but there's probably only so many places you're going to cross that creek. So that's why it goes through there. Pretty much the water line, the gas line, everything goes through there in that one particular area. I'm assuming that was the easiest route. That's why they took that route.
Is Gates on that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When we do the Bassett lift station, would there be any incentive to finding out if there is another better route to go through now?
Well, your piping's already there now.
Okay.
You'll continue using the piping. All you're doing is replacing the pumps that's there. So everything else will stay intact. You're still going to bypass, the whole time you're redoing one of these lift stations, you got to bypass pump up, and you're using your piping that's there, because, they might be there 2 days, 3 days working on this, so you're still using all your piping.
Okay.
Do we have flow meters on any of the lift stations?
Just hour meters.
Power meters?
Mm-hmm.
Does it show cycle time or
Just hours.
just total?
Just total hours.
What would it cost to add a flow meter? Because that would be rather interesting.
Well, it's interesting, but I know, didn't we have to do that for?
Yes. We've just done it again too with,
to determine the size of the new lift stations we put in?
That's hired out, right? Did we hired it out?
Yes.
It costs quite a bit to do the temporary flow meters.
And that's kind of what we've done to figure out our basin where we're getting a lot of the water. We picked an area and set meters up around town and how we determined, but it was a no-brainer. It's right on the creek.
Anybody further questions?
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thanks for keeping Iola afloat.
Super flow.
All right, we have council and administration reports. We'll discuss over here.
Case in the final four.
Hallelujah.
I'd like to see, Matt, if we can get some proposals on upgrading our sound system here.
Okay.
I don't know how old this is, 10 years? But we continually have problems with, I don't often tune in to see what the recordings are like, but we don't always keep the mic in front, and particularly when people are standing up there at the podium, unless they're right here within 6 inches of the mic, it doesn't pick up their voice. And I'd like to see some options of putting in a better system.
Ooh, I want one of those clips that goes on your shirt.
Just remember your line.
And to echo what Carl said, I did get some complaints last week that there's quite a few people that do attend our council meeting online and they're not hearing us at all. And I was asked to remind everyone to lean in and speak in the mic, and you spoke earlier and I saw the mic and I forgot to remind everyone. So until then, let's try to pay attention and speak more into the mic. So, thanks, Carl. Anything else? Nick?
I have nothing.
Mark?
I hope that's on. So, two things. The first is that I've had people tell me, it's something I addressed a few years ago, under a different city council, different administration, is a crosswalk across Cottonwood, North Cottonwood, right there at White Boulevard. Some individuals have come because they're concerned about college students with the foot traffic over there, and also that the sidewalks are not handicap accessible right there. So I don't know if that's a partnership between the city and the college, or how exactly we do that. But they've been asking about that, having some sort of crosswalk, whether it's like what we have on State Street at the trail, or just a simple sign or something. And then the other one is that the mayor and I attended ISO, I think is what it was. And it was about our rating as a fire department. And just something that I thought of like while we were in that, because the conference room is in the basement of City Hall. And the detective's office is right there. You have to go through the conference room to get to the detective's office. And so I think it would be worthwhile for the council to look into, like one thought I had is maybe a first responder center. City Hall is very small. It has the police, it has municipal court, it's got city hall, administration, and city clerk. And so there's just not a lot of room. And I know that I've heard about the fire station also not having enough storage for our employees there and what they're doing. And so I think it would be worthwhile for the council to look into something of that sort.
You're talking about a new one?
And as Paul Harvey said, stay tuned for the rest of the story.
Yep.
Those are good points and on the radar, and drive by City Hall during
I do.
court time.
I love to see who's there.
Yeah, but it's quite an eye-opener when you're utilizing that conference room downstairs and they're bringing somebody in for questioning, and
It's not ideal.
it's not ideal.
And that's really why I'm bringing this up, is just,
Sure.
I think we had like 3 people walk through that needed to go into that office, and not all of them were city employees that went in there. So just giving them a little bit more privacy and actual space to do what they're supposed to be doing, I think is something that we as a group need to look into. Other than that, on a positive note, April 12th, that's this Tuesday after our next meeting, is going to be English night at the college for dinner. And so I hope you all join us, 5:30 to 6:30.
Thank you. Joe?
Nothing, sure.
Pam?
I think we, as a city council, need to look into working with Jonathan at Thrive. Iola has lost 7 restaurants, counting Opie's and Humboldt, in the last 6 months. And that's just, we've got to do something about that.
Grab that mic.
I have nothing to say.
Thank you. Just a reminder, what do they have, about 2 more days until noon on the 1st for
Yes.
trash pickup?
Yes, call
So-
Friday before noon,
Friday before noon, if anyone wants
not after. Get on the list.
their free citywide pickup. It's an added service at a good rate that the city does. Kudos to the city for doing that, all the extra work, but it helps keep our city clean, so if there's anyone with stuff just sitting around their yard that doesn't need to be there, it's a good way to get Iola cleaned up, no expense to them, other than our regular trash bill. The only other thing I have is, as you all know, the Allen College basketball team went to regionals, and when we were sitting in that ISO meeting, I received a request from out of college asking if the city would be willing to do any type of a send-off for them. And since Corey Isabel was sitting there and said, "Hey, Corey," he said, "well, we've done it for the soccer team and others, sure, we'll do it." And so he organized it with other first responders and law enforcement. And I just want to read to you what John Wells said, because it's kind of an eye-opener of how different people think. But thank you and all the city for the send-off. If you could express my gratitude to everyone. I just talked to a few of the men on the basketball team, and they loved it. They had never seen or even thought the city would do something like that to support them. A lot are from urban areas, and the first responders, law enforcement, is often associated negatively with problems or troubles in their neighborhoods. So this helped change some minds. So it's just kind of interesting that sometimes what we take for granted, others not so much. So kudos to the city for being willing to step up and do this for the community. That's all I have.
Nothing, sir.
All right. Roxanne, anything for us?
No. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Is there that line hold down?
Are you out?
Thank you.
What's that? Like it?
I've got a question for you.
Are you been just showing up to see what's going on, or?
What's up? How was the last meeting? Roxanne, there is someone here.
Well, don't have Corey here. Corey's more important.
Don't worry, I'll text him, be like,